Part 22. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Aishang. Chapter 211. The only one who made Yayu feel a little normal was probably the man named Kibayuto, and the other two women made Yayu feel a little uncomfortable to get along with. Putting aside the white-haired girl who completely ignored her existence, this black-haired woman also gave Yayu a vague feeling of danger. Okay, let me introduce you to Yayu. He just transferred to Kua Academy. At the same time, he is also a dependent soldier under me. By the way, he uses 8 demon chess pieces. Ria said proudly to the people around her. Although 8 chess pieces were a bit scary, it was not without precedent. So when Ria said this, although several people present were a little surprised, they quickly reacted. The white-haired girl who had been ignoring Yayu looked at him a few more times with some concern. The one on my left is the queen among my followers, Hajime Akeno, who is also the deputy director of the Supernatural Research Department. This is the first time we meet. My name is Hajime Akeno. Please give me your advice in the future, Yayu-san, Hajime Akeno said with a smile. Ah, first time we meet, Yayu said and stretched out his hand to shake hands with the beautiful girl in front of him. Her long flowing ponytail kept attracting his attention. This one is my knight, Kibayuto. Rias extended her hand to the right and introduced. Welcome to join you, Yayu-san. Kibayuto smiled slightly and shook hands with Yayu. The last one is Tachin Kitten, and the job agency is Chariot. Finally, Rias pointed to the silver-haired girl sitting on the sofa opposite. Compared with the previous two people, Mao Mao's reaction was still cold, and he only glanced at Yayu slightly. Ah, now that everyone is here, welcome to join our little family, Yayu-jun, Ria said with a smile. Come over and sit down. Let's start the meeting of the Supernatural Research Department. Rias asked Yayu, Hajime Akeno and Kibayuto to sit down. This is course tea. Hajime Akeno poured a cup of tea and brought it to Yayu. Thank you. Yayu took it and took a sip. It tastes very good. Thank you for the compliment, Hajime Akeno said with a smile, and the Tashiro kitten on the side raised his head and drank the entire cup of tea. Now that everyone has gathered, let's start the meeting of the Supernatural Research Department. Ria said this, and immediately began to speak slowly. The so-called meeting was naturally to educate the newcomer Yayu about demons, angels, and fallen angels. Although Yayu had roughly understood everything, in order to create the illusion that Yayu had just become Rias's dependent, Rias took the trouble to say it again. This is indeed the case. For Rias, Yayu has truly become her dependent today, and the same is true for her dependent companions. Now both sides have been in contact. If you do some calculations, there are a dozen people in total. In particular, several of them are members of the student union and are active on campus quite frequently. I always feel like tomorrow, no, I will be bumped into by someone I know today. Touching the tip of his nose, Yayu thought with a wry smile. At the same time, Rias also elaborated on Yayu's series of encounters, including a tragic life experience, being attacked by a fallen angel, being finally saved by herself, and then signing a contract to become a dependent. In short, I have to say that Rias's ability to write stories is pretty good. She told Kibayuto and Hajime Akeno that they both stared at Yayu with sympathetic eyes. By the way, Yayu, I still don't know what kind of artifact you possess. Can you feel the power of the artifact? Ria said this suddenly, and Yayu was slightly stunned. Artifact? Is there any artifact on my body? Wait, is it that sword, but does that sword really exist? There was a puzzled look on his face, and Kibayuto on the side thought that Yayu didn't know what the artifact was, so he started to explain. The so-called artifact refers to the extraordinary power that resides in a specific human being. It is said that many famous figures in history are the holders of artifacts, and it is through the power of artifacts that they can leave their names in history. There are still many people who have artifacts in their bodies. Aren't there many internationally famous people in the world? Most of them are also people with artifacts in their bodies. Jima Akeno also added explanation after Kiba. Then Rias continued to speak. Of course there are many kinds of artifacts. In fact, most of the artifacts have functions that can only affect human society at most. However, there are also artifacts that are powerful enough to threaten us demons and fallen angels. The reason why you encountered the attack of the fallen angels is also due to the powerful artifact in your body. Although Ria said this, you still couldn't be sure that the cold jet black giant sword that seemed to appear in a dream, did it really exist? Although you can activate the power of the artifact unconsciously, you may still not know how to materialize the artifact, but it doesn't matter, I'll teach you. Ria said this and held Yayu's palm. Close your eyes and imagine the strongest thing in your mind. The most powerful thing. The appearance of a purple-haired young girl appeared in Yayu's mind involuntarily. She looked like a smiling girl, but her petite and lovely body contained a power that could destroy the world. If Yayu were asked to name the most powerful person he had ever seen, there would be no other person besides her. Everyone who looked at Yayu's hands carefully couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, not because they were surprised by what happened, but because they were caught off guard because the temperature in the room suddenly dropped sharply. What happened? At the moment when Akeno was surprised, Rias's eyes widened with joy. She was really familiar with this terrifying power of ice. It was exactly the same as what she felt at Sana's house at that time. That's right, it's this power, the power of this artifact. A cold breath slowly spread in the room, and immediately in the eyes of everyone, a coquettish longsword slowly appeared. It was a jet-black longsword filled with an overwhelming sense of oppression. The sword was covered with alluring runes. The bones on the hilt seemed to be alive. Scarlet eyes looked down at everything in the world coldly. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 212. This is the first time that Yayu has truly seen the existence of this weapon, instead of just a concept that only exists in his imagination. It turns out that it really exists, and it's not my imagination. The room was very quiet, and everyone was shocked by the giant sword in Yayu's hand. Not only was it the overwhelming sense of oppression, it was also the cold breath that made it difficult to breathe. Is this artifact really not a divine annihilation tool? Rias thought this in her heart, and then slowly spoke as if she was dreaming. What's the name of this weapon? Name. A moment of confusion flashed across Yayu's face, and then he spoke slowly. Frostmourne. Frostmourne. Rias muttered this name to herself. She didn't know why she was chanting this name and looking at the indifferent expression on Yayu's face. Ria suddenly felt extremely heartbroken, as if her heart was tightly grasped by something. Generally, some couldn't help but want to hold the other person in his arms and comfort him, but because of the long sword in Yayu's hand, it was not very convenient. Yayu, you must keep the existence of this artifact secret. Otherwise, if you are discovered by the fallen angels, your situation will still be very dangerous. I am afraid you are not their opponent now. Ria said this, and Yayu nodded slightly, although in fact he really wanted to see what the so-called fallen angel looked like. Yayu still knows very little about the mysterious power in this world, which is not conducive to the next plan. Demons are just the beginning, whether they are angels or fallen angels, he must come into contact with them. On Sana's side, Yayu still has a position as a member of the student council, but here with Rias, Yayu is just doing nothing. After the meeting ended, Rias announced the adjournment of the meeting and continued school as usual. As for the task of becoming a demon's dependent, there is also a task, but what makes Yayu dumbfounded is that this task actually involves sending leaflets. According to Rias, she needs to find dependents who are willing to sign a contract with the devil as soon as possible, because compared to Sana, she has too few dependents. The ranking game will start soon, which will be very disadvantageous for her. Of course, Rias didn't ask Yayu to do things like deliver flyers. After all, Yayu was a reincarnated demon made from 11 chess pieces, the treasure of Sana and Rias. The identity of the fallen angel who attacked Yayu was not yet known, so for the sake of safety, they decided to let Yayu keep a low profile. However, only Yayu knew that this so-called fallen angel was actually completely fictional. But according to Rias and the others, because she possesses a divine weapon in her body, so the fallen angels will come to her sooner or later, right? So should we deliberately release the power of Frostmourne and attract the appearance of the fallen angels? While Yayu was thinking about this, the appearance of a group of men and women attracted his attention. They look like just an ordinary couple, but both the man and the woman exude an unusual aura. The masculine breath felt very familiar to him. If he remembered correctly, he had felt this kind of breath on Nesha and Nisa before. It was the breath of a dragon. As for that woman, looking at the laughing girl, Yayu frowned slightly. This woman didn't make him feel very comfortable. It was like seeing a natural enemy. Why do I have this strange feeling? Yayu was slightly surprised, but it was certain that these two people were not ordinary people, and if he saw it correctly, the man should have a divine weapon in his body, right? Thinking of what Ria said about collecting companions, Yayu couldn't help but think about it. Should he absorb this boy? Let's take a look first. That woman is still a bit concerning. With this thought in mind, Yayu immediately followed the two of them and left the campus. Just like an ordinary couple, the two walked and went shopping until dusk when they reluctantly prepared to say goodbye. Originally, everything was normal and beautiful, just like the romantic drama on TV. The jet black wings slowly fell, telling the silent decadence and nobility. At this moment, what was happening in the eyes of the human named Hyudu Issei was something that he could not understand at all. Suddenly I was confessed to by a beautiful girl I didn't know, and then went on a date. Everything was as good as in a dream, but everything soon changed. Farewell in Fountain Square at dusk. It is undoubtedly a very wonderful thing for the romantic partner to say goodbye with a loving kiss, right? The smiling girl in front of her said, "Can I ask you to die?" Such dangerous words. What, Yuma-chan, did I hear it wrong? Hyudu Issei looked at the beautiful girl in front of him with incomprehensible eyes. No. I want to ask you to die. The dark black wings sprouted from the back of the smiling girl, fluttering, and she looked directly at Hyudu Issei with a downward gaze. The gentle eyes turned cold and frightening. They were cold and ruthless eyes looking at beings lower than themselves, without any trace of mercy. I'm really sorry. Playing house with you is still a little fun, but unfortunately you are really an uncontrollable factor for us, so I think it's better to kill him. Unlike Amano Yuma's gentle voice, the voice of the girl who was transformed into a fallen angel at this moment was so mature and coquettish. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. There was a noisy sound, and the javelin gathered by the light appeared in Amano Yuma's hand. There was no way to avoid the trajectory, just like light. Before my mind could react, my body was filled with severe pain. The body was pierced, and he fell down completely uncontrollably. The red blood that belonged to him fled from the body as if it was escaping. Footsteps sounded in his ears, and they were Yuma-chan's footsteps. If you want to blame it on the god who placed the artifact in your body. He spoke words that Hyudu Issei couldn't understand, and immediately Amano Yuma disappeared. The dark sky recovered again, and it turned into the fountain square under dusk. Everything was normal, as if nothing had happened, except for Issei Hyudu, who was on the ground with blood constantly pouring out of his body. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 213. Is this a fallen angel? Yayu, who stood aside and watched the development of the matter, did not walk out until the fallen angel named Amano Yuma left. However, it seems that this fallen angel is not very strong, and he did not even notice that he was hiding aside. Even so, it is too easy to kill a human who has not awakened the artifact. This boy was pierced through the heart by the javelin of light without any resistance. Are you going to die? His consciousness was quickly fading, and Hyudu Issei looked so unwilling. Who will save me? Footsteps sounded again, a sonorous and powerful sound made by hard leather heels. Who is coming? Save me, save me. The blood flowed slowly, and the bright red color gathered under Hyudu Issei's body. To save, or not to save? Yayu was in a dilemma. Yayu has never been a kind guy. On the contrary, he has never cared about the life and death of people who have nothing to do with him. The reason why he followed him out was just because he discovered that the other party had the aura of a dragon on his body, which made him a little curious. Even meeting a fallen angel could be said to be an accident. And if you want to save this guy, it's very simple. You just need to use the flyer Rias gave you to summon him, and then let her make a contract with the dying boy in front of you. Is this okay? For some reason, Yayu suddenly fell silent, and his eyes turned cold when looking at the young man in front of him. Why save him? Give yourself another competitor? Uncontrollable, such thoughts arose in his mind, and Yayu himself didn't know whether these were his true thoughts, or whether they were affected by the sins of this life. But it is undeniable that Yayu's thoughts about saving the young man in front of him have indeed faded a lot. He walked up to Hyudu Issei, stretched out his hand and took the other person's palm. Now, instead of saving him, Yayu wants to know more about what kind of artifact he has on him and why it makes him feel the dragon's breath. Who is this, come to save me? Save me. He wanted to speak but no sound came out, and he couldn't even open his eyes. The moment Yayu held Hyudu Issei's palm, an extremely cold breath invaded his body along his palm. Even Yayu himself didn't understand what happened. Immediately, a blazing red light burst out from Hyudu Issei's wrist. A majestic dragon roar sounded, but it was completely annihilated by the endless ice before it showed its majesty for a long time. By the time Yayu came to his senses, the poor young man in front of him had turned into an ice sculpture and completely lost his life. For it. Yayu froze there stupidly. He obviously didn't do anything. Why did something like this happen? Not knowing how to deal with the current situation, Yayu had no choice but to take out the leaflet Rias gave him. This flyer with a small teleportation circle on it can directly summon Rias. A magic circle was outlined around Yayu, and immediately a touch of enchanting bright red appeared in Yayu's eyes. First, there were long red hair like blood, and then Rias appeared in front of Yayu. Well, Yayu, you summoned me? What happened? Rias, who was summoned, thought that the flyers she sent out were activated by some customer, but when she came over, she realized that it was Yayu who had summoned her. This is. Seeing Hyudu Issei lying on the ground with no life breath, Rias was slightly startled, and then looked at Yayu. I don't know what happened. I found a unique aura on him in the academy and thought it might be an artifact, so I followed him to take a look, and then I found out that he had been killed by a fallen angel. After the fallen angel left, I went over to see how he was doing, but I just held his hand, and the result was. Is that so? I can't blame you for this. It's because we didn't make it clear to you. Looking at the hopeless Hyudu Issei, Ria sighed with regret. When the host encounters a life threat, the artifact will spontaneously protect the host. You were in such a situation at the beginning, and he was obviously the same. When you held his hand, the artifact residing in his body was in order to protect the master. He launched a counterattack, and at the same time, your artifact did the same, and then that was it. Is that what it looks like? Yayu scratched his head, but he always felt that something entered his body the moment he came into contact with this boy. Is it just an illusion? Yes, you don't have to blame yourself. This is not your fault. If he wants to blame, he can only blame the fallen angel who killed him. When Ria said this, Yayu shrugged slightly. Blame yourself? He was not in such a mood. He had no intention of saving him in the first place. Since he had been killed unintentionally, it could only be said that it was God's will. But I didn't expect that the fallen angels have become more and more courageous. They actually dare to come directly to our territory and kill people in our academy. It seems that they don't take us Gremory seriously at all. Yayu, you must be careful in the next few days. I'm afraid these fallen angels are still searching for targets these days. Kang Na's and I's family members shouldn't dare to move around casually, but if you say it, they may be fine. Don't worry, after all, not many people know that you are the dependent of the two of us. Although there is constant friction between demons, angels, and fallen angels, they still maintain a basic rule. Otherwise, it will inevitably trigger a war among the three races again. Whether it is Sana or Rias, their existence in the human world can be said to be tacitly allowed. Both the angels and the fallen angels are actually very aware of their existence. Even though they knew it, they didn't dare to do anything to Sana and Rias. This was an unwritten rule among the three clans. The conflicts between the juniors were resolved by themselves. If there are fallen angels with more than 4 wings who dare to take action against Sana and Rias, I am afraid that 2 of the 4 demon kings would not mind directly taking action to remove all the strongholds of angels and fallen angels in the human world. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 214. He is obviously a fallen angel, but he can still use the power of light. This is what Yayu has learned so far about the fallen angel. Walking on the way out of school, Yayu thought about this. Although both Rias and Lias cared about him very much and even said that they would send someone to escort him to his safety, Yayu refused. Originally, Sana was supposed to go with him when school was over. After all, the two of them lived together, but obviously that was not possible today. After all, Yayu was Rias's dependent today. Kiba and Akeno even sent Yayu out of school. If they saw Yayu and Sana walking together, the secret would be exposed immediately, right? The good thing is that because Sana and her family members are all members of the student council, it has become a specific process to stay for meetings and handle some affairs every day, so they can stagger their meetings when school starts. As for Yayu, who was also a member of the student union, did not attend the meeting, Kang Na casually explained this and was confused. At least now it seems that Yayu's worries are somewhat unnecessary, as Sana and Rias have handled both sides well. I just don't know how long this situation can be hidden. The school will always hold some group activities, right? By that time, just saying hello will definitely expose the secret. Wow! Yayu was thinking this way, and suddenly a voice rang out. At the same time as the sound coming from behind, there was the sound of something falling on the road. When she turned around, she saw a nun falling to the ground. She spread her hands and fell face down on the road. The exaggeration of the fall made Yayu couldn't help but think that he had met someone who deliberately touched the porcelain. How are you? But the other party was a girl after all, so it was not good to speculate on the other party so maliciously. Yayu still approached her and planned to help her up. But just when the nun stretched out her hand as if she wanted to hold Yayu's palm, Yayu was slightly startled and took his hand back. Wow wow wow! The result was that the nun, who had just straightened her upper body and was about to put her hand on Yayu's palm, let out a scream and fell down again with her face on the ground. It looks like it hurts. Of course, Yayu didn't intentionally leave the girl in such a state of embarrassment, and there was nothing that could be done about it happening. The reason why Yayu suddenly withdrew his hand was because he noticed the unusual aura on the girl's body. There is no doubt that that thing should be a divine weapon. there is a certain divine weapon in the body of the girl in front of her. Recalling the death incident caused by his casual touch not long ago, Yayu naturally did not dare to pull this girl up casually anymore. Why do you do this to Aisha? The nun who fell again raised her head and stared at Yayu with tears in her eyes. Her voice was very young and she looked like she was still a student. Because she fell twice in a row, when she raised her head at this time, her long golden hair also slipped down from the fixed veil, and her straight blonde hair shone in the sunset. Yayu's eyes moved involuntarily to the nun's face. A beautiful girl with dazzling blonde hair and beautiful and deep green eyes, as if she wanted to suck Yayu in. This beautiful appearance involuntarily overlapped with a certain figure in Yayu's mind, with that proud, stubborn, but extremely dazzling woman. I don't know, where are you now and how are you doing, Artoria? As a heroic spirit, he should be immortal, right? Even if he loses in the war, he will just return to the Hall of Valor. In this case, there will naturally be opportunities to meet again in the future. Ah, that apology is actually because I have a curse on my body, so I can't touch you, otherwise I will hurt you. Yayu was stunned for a long time, hesitantly speaking with a very clumsy lie. Although it sounded like a lie, the nun in front of me actually nodded and believed it stupidly. Is this, like this? This gentleman is so pitiful. You believe it? I just believed it so directly. Is it so easy to be deceived? Hey, is this gentleman lying to me? The nun named Aisha tilted her head in confusion. She looked at Yayu's face suspiciously, patted herself, and stood up with difficulty. Not really, but it's very troublesome to explain, so just think of it as a curse. Is that so? Anyway, thank you for helping me. Even though I fell down again, your purpose in the beginning was still to help me. Aisha said so nonchalantly. Not only did she directly believe Yayu's clumsy lies, but she even didn't care about the wrestling incident in which she was killed in the first place. Are you here for a trip? Looking at the luggage carried by the girl behind her, Yayu asked curiously. The nun shook her head in response to Yayu's question. No, it's not a trip. In fact, I went to the church in this town today to take up my post. You should also live in this town. Please give me your advice in the future. She bowed slightly. But I ran into trouble when I first came here. It's because I don't speak Japanese very well, and then I got lost, and no one on the road understood what I was saying. The confused nun clasped her hands in front of her chest and looked at Yayu asking for help. It seems like this is just our first meeting. Why are you asking me for help? Are you so sure that I will help you? And you should at least be a little wary in a foreign country. Is it really okay to just trust a strange man you meet for the first time? Yayu was a little dumbfounded thinking about this, but he still chose to help the other party. After all, the other party should have a divine weapon in her body, and he had to find a way to get familiar with her so that she could become Rias's dependent. Yayu was actually not very familiar with this town and didn't know where the church was, but that didn't mean he couldn't find it. In fact, the girl could not find her way to the church only because of language difficulties. There was a bus stop sign on the roadside, and the location of the church was clearly written. Looking at the directions on the map, it seems to be quite far from the town, but since we can take a ride, we won't waste much time anyway. I'll take you there. Really, really. Thank you, this must also be the Lord's guidance. With tears in her eyes, the nun smiled at Yayu and said, I have to say that this girl is really too cute. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 215. Are you grateful to the Lord for his arrangements? It would be ridiculous to say this in front of a demon. Yayu touched the tip of her nose and thought like this. Looking at the rose beads on her chest, she could clearly feel a powerful repulsive force. Maybe the meeting between the two was wrong. As a demon, Yayu should not have met and talked with the girl. But now that they have met, and since Yayu has discovered that the other party has a divine weapon, there is no reason to let it go. No matter what, I have to find a way to abduct her to Kyo Academy. Fortunately, Kang Na's chess pieces have been used up, otherwise I might have been struggling for who knows how long as to whose dependent this girl should become. After exchanging names, Yayu took the nun, who was a bit dazed, all the way to the church. Because he was not sure whether the frost morn on his body would hurt the other party, Yayu kept deliberately keeping a distance from the girl, while the latter pursed her lips unwillingly, as if she wanted to come and hold Yayu's hand. Same as hands. The curse on you. Gradually leaving the town and arriving at the suburbs, Aisha finally couldn't help but speak. Kindness. Yayu was slightly startled, and then Aisha continued. Well, let me give it a try. Maybe I can resolve your curse. Aisha said this, and immediately held Yayu's hand before he could react. Why? Yayu suddenly panicked. The moment the girl's hand grasped his, a biting cold air spread from the place where their bodies came into contact. It seemed that Frostmourne was more disobedient than Yayu imagined, and he directly launched a counter-attack without paying any attention to whether the person who came into contact with him was hostile. And just when Yayu was worried that this power would hurt the girl, a burst of soft light green light emitted from Aisha's palm. Although it was sacred, it was a light that would not burn others. Even Yayu was involuntarily intoxicated under this light. Is this the power of her artifact? It seems to have a healing effect, and it is really a reassuring power. Yayu thought so, and under this force, Frostmourne, which was about to move, fell silent, and soon the frightening power of frost completely disappeared. Okay, it seems to have been successful. Although she was freezing for a moment, Yayu's strength soon became silent again. Aisha showed a smile every day and raised her head to look at Yayu. Ah, it was indeed successful. Thank you. With a gentle smile, Yayu gently touched the girl's head, and the latter also tilted her head and showed a somewhat embarrassed smile. Well, it's really great to be able to help Mr. Yayu. But what is this power? Aisha asked, pretending to be a little confused, and then she explained gently. This is a healing power. I didn't expect it to be so effective against curses. It is a beautiful gift given to me by God. She was still smiling, but her expression was vaguely lonely. How should I put it, this power does not seem to bring much happiness to the girl's life. The conversation was interrupted here, and the two headed towards the church again. A few minutes' walk from the park, there is an old church. It was already getting late, but looking from a distance, the building was lit up, as if someone lived inside. A strange feeling of rejection came from the church not far away, also because it was related to the devil, and the church was a place related to gods and angels. For Yayu, it was undoubtedly an enemy position. Before this, Sana and Rias also warned Yayu not to go near shrines and churches. However, it didn't feel as exaggerated as what Sana and Rias said. It was indeed a bit uncomfortable. The feeling of rejection is not to the extent that it makes me feel weak and unable to stand firmly. To be precise, it just made him feel disgusted and uncomfortable. Ah, it's right here. Great. Comparing the map on the note, the nun breathed a sigh of relief. Then, I'll send you here. It is not advisable to stay here for a long time. Moreover, it was getting dark, so it was better to leave early, otherwise Kang Na would worry about him when he returned. Thinking like this, Yayu said goodbye to the nun in front of him. Ah, thank you so much, Mr. Yayu. It's nothing, it's just a little effort. Well, I hope we can have another chance to meet in the future. Aisha said this and then bowed deeply, while Yayu waved goodbye. The girl stood there watching him leave until Yayu completely left her sight. After Yayu left, Aisha also took a deep breath, turned around and looked at the dilapidated church in front of her, and walked in immediately. Looking at the girl's expression, she didn't seem to want to go inside. The reason is unknown. The next day, after Yayu told Rias about Aisha's situation, he was scolded by Rias. It's right to help me find relatives who have artifacts, but you must not have anything to do with the people in the church. The other party is a nun, and she also possesses artifacts, so she must be a child who is very concerned even in the angel camp, so I think it's basically impossible to take her as your own. Ria said so seriously, her expression more serious than every time before. Rias has always given Yayu the impression that she is careless and nonsensical, but this is the first time I have seen her so serious. At this time, Rias felt like the younger sister of Lucifer, the four demon lords, and she was worthy of the vicious title of the red-haired killer princess. After warning Yayu like this, Rias's attitude changed drastically. She seemed to be very curious and leaned out from behind the table to ask Yayu. Have you told Sana this news? Is that true? After all, I was the president's retinue the day I found Asia, and Sana's retinues are already here, right? Well, that's great, thank you, I didn't hurt you in vain. Listening to Yayu's answer, Rias, who looked particularly happy, jumped out from behind the table, then hugged Yayu's body with a smile. I'm very happy that you are interested in looking for the dependents. However, for safety reasons, it is better not to have contact with the nun for the time being. The dependents can continue to search, but it will cause conflict between the two camps. Ria said this, and Yayuz nodded slightly, but for some reason, the girl's lonely smile always appeared in his mind. She needs help, needs herself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 216. After several days of peaceful daily life without any ups and downs, the cheating incident that worried Yayu never happened. He didn't know whether it was good luck or something else. Today is still a day for Rias's dependents. Because there have been a little more requests recently, Yayu also has to do the starting job. Rias's method of collecting relatives all relies on the leaflets with small teleportation arrays that she distributes, which are circulated in this small town in the name of being able to fulfill wishes. Of course, most people think this is just a joke, but there are a few people who will give it a try and summon the devil according to what the leaflet says, and then make some weird wishes. Most of them are small things like running errands, and yeah, you will be given some tips after the work is done. It seems that they regard this so-called demon summoning as a novel service industry job. There were many people activating the summoning circle attached to the flyer, but I didn't meet anyone who was qualified to become Rias's familiar. According to Rias' words, yeah, you should also go exercise and help Kiba and Konako share the heavy work. Although Sana had always scoffed at Rias' behavior like a child playing house, she thought it was stupid. But as a devil, it feels so bad to walk to the door and ring the doorbell. Thinking this with a wry smile, Yayu looked at the address recorded on the flyer in his hand. Soon he came to a house, and then he discovered an unusual situation. The door was open, and it was already very late at night. It was unscientific to think of leaving the door open at this time. It's so late at night, it's too dangerous. No. There was a smell of blood coming from the house. Thinking like this, Yayu increased his vigilance and walked into the house. There are no lights in the corridor, there is a staircase leading to the second floor, and it seems that the lights are not turned on. Only the rooms deep on the first floor seemed to have lights, but they were very dark. As Yayu gradually walked into the room, the smell of blood became stronger and stronger. The light in the room was not a lamp, just a flickering candle. This is the living room. There are sofas, TVs, coffee tables, and other furniture inside. The living room layout is quite ordinary, but there is a corpse on the wall of the living room, with the corpse on the head and feet. The smell of blood also comes from here. The corpse could be seen to be that of a man, and his body had been hacked to pieces. There was something flowing out of the wound, it should be internal organs, it looked very miserable. Such a tragic situation did not make Yayu feel any discomfort at all. He just started to wonder who the person who did such a thing was. It's obviously not something humans can do. It's not that there aren't such perverted and cruel murderers, but the precision of the wounds on the man's body is obviously not something humans can do. Then the only people who can commit such a crime should be people from the three camps of demons, angels, and fallen angels. Was it the work of a lost demon? But, the lost demon shouldn't have a bad taste, right? Yayu looked at the man in front of him again. The body was attached to the wall in the shape of an inverted cross and fixed with nails. Thick nails were driven into the palms of the man's hands, the soles of his feet, and the center of his body. This kind of killing method that is full of religious connotations and aura does not look like something that a lost demon who has lost his mind can do. Blood dripped onto the floor, forming a puddle. There were also words written in blood on the wall where the man was nailed. Those who do evil will be punished. This is a quote from a saint. Just when Yayu tried hard to distinguish the words on the wall, a young man's voice suddenly came from behind him. He turned around and saw a white-haired man. Very young, looks like a foreigner, probably only in his teens. He is dressed like a priest and looks a little evil. When the priest saw Yayu, he grinned. Oops, isn't this the evil, demon boy? He smiled broadly. Yayu couldn't help but recall the words that Rias had reminded him. There are not only priests and nuns praying in the church, but also powerful exorcists who perform combat missions. These people who receive God's blessing are powerful enough to easily destroy ordinary reincarnated demons. Dressed like a priest, one can easily see his identity as a demon. Coupled with the religious corpse in the living room, there is no doubt that the man in front of him is the so-called exorcist. I am a priest? A young priest? Killing demons and ruthlessly mocking? Demons, I have to chop off your head so that I can make a living. The priest suddenly started singing, as crazy as a madman. My name is Fried Seltzer. I am a junior member of an exorcist organization. Oh, you don't have to follow me just because I gave you my name. I don't want to waste my brain capacity memorizing your name. It's better to avoid it. It doesn't matter, you will die soon anyway. I will let you die. It may hurt a little at first, but it will be so good that you cry soon. Let's move towards a new world together. It's really troublesome. Killing the contractor casually will be very troublesome. Ha, who told him to summon demons all day long? Who else would he kill if he didn't? That's fine. After seeing the power of fallen angels, let's take a look at what the so-called angel's power is like. Originally, the priest was expecting to see a panicked expression on Yayu's face, but unfortunately there was not one, which disappointed the somewhat crazy priest. What are you doing? Why don't you cry or panic? Do you still want to fight me? How dare a mere useless devil be so arrogant? It seems that there is something wrong with my brain. When Yayu was thinking this, across from him, the priest took out a sword without a blade and a pistol from his arms. Buzz. The sound of air vibrating. The weapon with only the hilt extends a light blade similar to a beam saber. You really make me feel like that. Can I cut you? Can I shoot you? Okay. Got it? Now I will pierce your heart with this knife of light, and use this handsome pistol to shoot you. Use your head to remember that you will definitely fall in love. You talk too much nonsense. Yeah, you spoke calmly, but the priest rushed straight over. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 217. As the youngest and most talented exorcist of the Archdiocese, Fried Seltzer was originally an exorcist directly under the Archdiocese of the Vatican. He became a genius exorcist at the age of 13, and had great achievements in destroying demons and monsters one after another. However, he did not spare even his compatriots. From the beginning, he had no faith, and only had a sense of hostility and murderous intention towards monsters. And his unusual persistence in fighting. Because of his cruel behavior, he was punished. Fried Seltzer, who had a promising future, was sent to a small church in a remote area of Japan. But obviously this was nothing to Fried Seltzer. All this crazy priest wanted in his heart was fighting and killing. For example, right now, he was particularly looking forward to seeing the demon in front of him wailing in pain after being struck by his sword of light. With this thought in mind, the sword of light made a sweeping sweep, but this action was only halfway through before it was forcibly stopped. Whoa! A cold feeling instantly spread from the heart to the whole body. At some point, the distance of less than 1 meter between Fried and Yayu was replaced by a cold, pitch-black sword. Under the flickering dim candlelight, the jet-black sword body exuded a coquettish luster that was difficult to look at directly. Fried felt a needle-like tingling sensation slowly coming from his heart, and then gradually spreading throughout his body. It felt like the blood vessels, and then bones, muscles, and skin were being frozen and then crushed bit by bit. What's this? When did it appear? Why did I get stabbed? A series of questions flashed through his mind this time, and then Fried lost all consciousness. His whole body froze from the inside out, and then turned into fine ice shards on the ground. Is this the only level? Is it really too weak? Looking at Fried, who couldn't die anymore, Yayu touched the tip of his nose with some displeasure and said a lot of nonsense. He looked like a very powerful guy, but in the end he couldn't even deceive himself with a sword. Hide away. In other words, he had no intention of dodging, and just hit the tip of his sword directly. Yayu couldn't help but recall what just happened. What happened at that moment was actually very simple. When the priest rushed over, he summoned Frostmourne and faced the opponent, and then the opponent directly hit the sword above the tip, and then completely pierced by himself. It's so boring. I haven't had a serious battle since I came to this world. If the so-called angel and fallen angel camps only have this level of combat power, it would be really uninspiring. Yayu thought this, and the knife in his hand disappeared again. However, at this moment, a girl's voice that was somewhat familiar to him rang. Please stop. Stop. The fight has already been completed, why should I hold back? Yayu touched the tip of his nose in a funny way, then turned around, and sure enough, the little nun who was very familiar to Yayu appeared at the door, Aisha. But the moment she walked into the house, Aisha looked at the body nailed to the wall and screamed loudly. Yayu, who noticed his mistake, waved his hand and froze the corpse on the wall. The pure white frost completely covered the blood and the tragic state of the corpse. Yayu walked towards Aisha. Sorry, I scared you, why are you here? How come, why was that man killed? Father Fried clearly said that he wanted to reform him and give him a chance to change his ways. Asia's eyes suddenly looked over, and her eyes widened in surprise. Why is Mr. Yayu here, and where is Father Fried? Sorry, if it's the priest. Looking at Aisha, who was staggering but still looking frightened, Yayu said apologetically, and then pointed to the ground under his feet. He's right here. Yeah. Eee. Noticing the ice chips scraping against her feet, Aisha screamed cutely again. How could something like this happen? Why did the owner of the house die, and Father Fried? I'm sorry, Aisha, there is one thing I have hidden from you. In fact, I am not an ordinary human being, I am a demon. How is it possible? Yayu's sudden words frightened Aisha back several steps, staring at him in disbelief. It is indeed true. I am a devil. Just now I came to the home of the human who summoned me and saw his body. The priest named Fried killed him and then attacked me. But it's not my opponent that I have eliminated. How, why is this happening? It shouldn't be like this. The impact of the strong fact made Aisha staggered, unable to stand, and fell to the ground. The priest's cruel methods, and the kind man she met by chance turned out to be her enemy, the devil, all of which made Elsa not sure how to face it. Demons are heretics and the natural enemies of the church. Humans and demons cannot coexist. Elsa couldn't help but recall the man she had helped once again, because he was originally a saint and had been slandered and corrupted, becoming an accomplice of the devil. It is also because of this that she was assigned to this small place to be a nun. But is this really the case? Did you really do something wrong? Did this power, the power God gave him to heal everyone, really fall because he saved the devil? Aisha curled up there, she couldn't help but want to cry. Apart from her faith in the Lord, she had nothing left now. Do you think I am your enemy? Or do you want to kill me to avenge that priest? At this time, Yayu walked over gently, knelt down, and stared at Aisha tenderly. No. No, Mr. Yayu is a very gentle person, even if he is a devil. And, Father Fried, why would he kill innocent people indiscriminately? Thinking of the corpse that was nailed to the wall and died in a miserable manner, Aisha couldn't help but feel nauseated again. Not all demons are evil, and not all angels are good. What measures justice and evil is a ruler in your heart. It has nothing to do with others. Just have a clear conscience. Yayu said softly while hugging the lovable girl in his arms tenderly. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 218. Maybe what Yayu meant was because it was too complicated for Aisha to understand clearly. So the girl just squatted there and cried silently, not knowing what to do. As a young girl, she is a sinful person. Coming to this small church is, at best, a personnel transfer, and at worst, exile. However, today was just the first day of taking office here, and the priest who was traveling with him died. He died in the hands of a devil he knew. That's why Aisha was so panicked and didn't know what to do. She didn't know how she should answer when the church asked her what happened. A priest who killed a demon he knew? The church will not care what the priest did before his death. They will only care about how the priest died and by whose hands he died. Do you have a good relationship with that guy? It's not that, we are just colleagues. We just met today. We went to the church in this town to take office together. Yayu asked, and Aisha shook her head gently. The girl's mood had calmed down a lot. That's okay. To put it bluntly, this priest is just an insignificant person to you, and this kind of scum is not worth crying over his death. Yayu said so calmly, although the tone was a bit unacceptable. Aisha was not very disgusted. What Fried did really made Elsa very disgusted and disgusted. He was obviously a clergyman, but he did things even crueler than the devil. Elsa couldn't shed a single tear about his death. She would rather cry for the innocent owner of the house than cry for him. But if the priest dies, I will be the only one in the church, and if the church pursues the case, I don't know what to do. Should I confess Mr. Yayu? Then just rebel. Why? Yayu said this, maybe because he was too surprised. Aisha's eyes widened involuntarily. Rebel, rebellion. What do you mean? Rebellion, I am a devil, why don't Aisha join me and become a devil? Yayu said this with a smile as he looked at Aisha with a cute expression in front of him. She really wanted Yayu to pinch her nose. How could you be like this, rebel or something? I am a nun, a messenger of God. But now, you have no way to go back. No matter what you say, the priest who was traveling with you is dead. No matter what he did, he was indeed killed by me, a devil. Killed. Woo. Yeah, you said this, and Aisha couldn't help but let out a mournful cry. And not only that, you know me as a devil. You can call me your friend. If the people in the church know about it, how will they feel? Oh, Mr. Yayu, so cunning. Aisha said this with tears in her eyes. She knew that Yayu was forcing her to leave with him, not to become a nun but to join the devil's camp. In the past, Elsa, who had extremely strong faith, would never agree to such a request, but now, the girl's heart is inevitably moved. Yes, Mr. Yayu is right at all. He has nothing worth remembering. As long as your faith still exists in your heart, what if you are walking with the devil? If what Father Fry did was justice, faith, and correct and praised, then, I would rather be a devil who is represented as evil. Aisha thought this, and the girl's eyes became extremely determined, and she finally made a decision. I'll go with you, Mr. Yayu, take me out of here. Seeing Aisha speaking so timidly, Yayu also had a satisfied smile on his face. He nodded gently, held Aisha's hand and left the room. But after leaving the victim's house, Yayu was faced with the dilemma of where to go. Kang Na naturally knew about helping Rias complete the commission. In fact, she couldn't ask, because after all, Yayu was still a dependent of Rias before 12 o'clock. As long as she got back before 12 o'clock at night, just go home and go to bed. But now, Yayu looked at Aisha beside him, is it really okay to just take her back like that? But it seemed like he didn't know where to go other than back to Sana. After all, he didn't know where Rias lived. You shouldn't mind what Sana said, right? Standing in front of a familiar house, Yayu was slightly troubled. What's wrong with Mr. Yayu? He seems to be very distressed. Looking at Yayu's appearance on the other side, Aisha asked. It's nothing, come on, come in, the person inside the house is my master. Don't worry, she has a good temper, don't be afraid. Hey, Mr. Yayu's master, could it be said that he is a powerful superior demon? Listening to what Yayu said, Aisha seemed very nervous. Well, you can say that my situation is more complicated. I will explain it to you slowly in the future. Yayu said with a wry smile. The fact that he is the dependent of two demons is not easy to explain. The lights in the room were on, and it looked like Sana hadn't fallen asleep yet. Knowing that the other party was waiting for him, Yayu couldn't help but feel slightly moved. Are you back? You felt an uncomfortable aura, and you thought it was the blind exorcist who came over, but it doesn't seem like that now. When she saw Yayu and Aisha walking in together, Kang Na raised her eyebrows slightly. The girl pushed up her glasses and stared at Aisha curiously. Won't you introduce me to this little nun? As Kang Na said this, she felt the aura of the divine weapon on the other person's body. This is Aisha. For some reason, she has to follow me now. Sister Sana, you can rest assured, she already knows our identities. Being called Sister Kang Na by Yayu, in front of outsiders, Kang Na couldn't help but blush. But she quickly reacted, coughed slightly, and cleared her throat. That's it, then it looks like she is the kinsman you found for Rias. Seemingly hearing the sour meaning in Kang Na's mouth, Yayu felt helpless and a little funny. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 219. There's nothing we can do about that, because Sana-san's family members are already here, and this is what Rias asked me to help her find. Yayu seemed to want to try to explain, but Kang Na waved his hand and didn't care much. Why do you think I would be angry about something like this? I'm not stingy enough. Yesterday you acted as a dependent of Rias, and it is natural to find a dependent for her. As Sana said this, She pushed up her glasses and began to carefully look at Aisha standing in front of her. But, I still have to criticize you for one thing. Yeah, you are just too careless. You must know that this girl is a nun. She is from our enemy's camp on the other side of the church. She still has a host in her body. The artifact must be very important. Although I don't know how you fooled this little girl, it is undoubtedly an unwise behavior. No. That's not the case. I came here voluntarily with Mr. Yayu. I feel that the faith I have always adhered to has become confused, so there are some things I want to see for myself to confirm. Aisha said this, and Sana raised her eyebrows slightly and stared at the girl in surprise. You know, girl, being able to say such things means that you have begun to degenerate. I don't know if I've fallen or not. Maybe I have long been a fallen nun in their eyes. After all, I have saved demons with the power given to me by God. Aisha said with a somewhat sad expression. It was because of the girl's kindness that she saved an unknown demon, which made her change from a noble saint to a fallen person. If the old priest who had been her guardian had not defended her vigorously, she might have been pushed to the gallows as an evil heretic, right? Oh, you've ever saved a demon? Sana was immediately interested, so he asked carefully, and then he understood what Aisha meant by saving the devil. It turns out that the girl once met an injured man, and after treating him, she discovered that he was a demon. The demon escaped after recovering from his injuries, but Elsa became a corrupted one. It always feels like, this devil seems to be doing this on purpose. Kang Na muttered uncertainly, but soon she became serious again and stared at Yayu. Although she is already a fallen nun and is likely to be abandoned by the church, she still cannot take it lightly. When the time comes, she must also remember to remind Rias to beware of attacks from the church at any time. Tonight, I will go to help she tidies a room. Sana said this, and Aisha shook her head. The girl stared at Sana timidly, and spoke slowly. Can I sleep with Mr. Yayu? I'm a little scared. It is understandable that a girl who had just seen such a bloody scene would have such a reaction, but the price was that Sana's face instantly darkened. Ugh, that's so scary. Did Aisha say something wrong? It's okay, Sister Kang, just let her sleep with me. What happened today is really too hard for her to bear. Yayu touched the girl's head in a funny way and looked at Kang Na saying this. He had become accustomed to Rias' naked attacks from time to time. Such a little girl really wouldn't let him have any thoughts. This. Seeing Yayu talking so indifferently, Kang Na still pouted a little unhappy. That guy Rias has sneaked into Yayu's bed so many times. It's okay for that guy to be shameless. Now, it's good that a little girl randomly appears and touches Yayu for such a ridiculous reason as fear. Bed. Then I want to sleep with you too. His mind felt a little hot for a moment, and then such words were thrown out by Kang Na, almost choking Yayu. Ha, what did you say, Sister Kangna? Yayu's eyes widened in disbelief, and Aisha on the side looked completely unaware. From the beginning to the end, she didn't think there was anything wrong with sleeping with Yayu. The girl was indeed just a pure person. Just a little scared. Then, isn't Aisha scared? I think it would be better if two people accompany her, right? Kang Na's expression quickly returned to normal, and she spoke so seriously, while Aisha on the side also nodded lightly. Well, thank you, Sister Kang. It's okay. Since you decided to become a demon, we are no longer enemies. As Yayu's. As Kang Na said this, she paused slightly and then remembered something very important. The girl in front of her is going to be Rias's dependent, so if her relationship with Yayu is known, wouldn't it be revealed? Kang Na thought of this, and Yayu naturally thought of it too. He pushed Aisha's body and asked her to go to the room first. The latter tilted his head a little strangely, but still nodded obediently. Yeah, you did mention the fact that Kang Na was his master at the beginning, but it was obvious that Aisha had forgotten it. In other words, the girl is not very clear about the concept of this so-called master, and she knows nothing about demons, demon chess pieces, and dependents. You have also thought about it, about Aisha, since she is a dependent of Rias, she must not let her know about our relationship. Aren't we sisters? Yeah, you said this somewhat amusingly, and then he made a very bold move, stepping forward and gently hugging Kang Na's body. What? Kang Na's pretty face turned red as she obviously didn't react, and she subconsciously wanted to struggle, but she was afraid of hurting Yayu, so her movements seemed very clumsy and ridiculous. Sister Kana obviously dared to say it out loud about sleeping with me. Why are you so shy about such a small thing? Minato said so cunningly in the girl's ear, causing Kang Na to turn his face in embarrassment. Then, that's because of Aisha, I don't want to sleep with you. I know, it must be because I have been stimulated by Rias these past few days. I am also very helpless about the fact that Rias always takes off her clothes secretly and climbs into my bed. I don't care about that immoral idiot Rias. I'm going to take a shower first. Putting on a textbook arrogance, Kang Na immediately pushed Yayu away and left the living room. Listening to the girl's words, he was even more sure that the other party had been waiting for him until now. Yayu couldn't help but feel sad and moved. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai. Chapter 220. She said she was going to sleep with Aisha, but when Sana finished taking a bath and walked into the room, she was a little bit dumbfounded to find that Aisha had already fallen asleep. So what's the point of saying so much at the beginning? Well, after all, she has experienced too much this day. It is normal for her to fall asleep directly when she is tired. Yeah, you said a little funny, and touched Aisha's forehead gently. The sleeping girl seemed to be very insecure. She hugged Yayu's hand tightly and then became quiet. Yayu is such a gentle person. Am I gentle? Listening to what Kang Na said, Yayu couldn't help but laugh a little. He who couldn't even express his feelings in the past was actually called gentle. But, maybe it's because I gained a lot and lost a lot, so I cherish it more, right? But now, do you still want to sleep together? Seemingly thinking of something, Yayu raised his head and stared at Kang Na in a funny way. At first, the girl seemed to be worried about what would happen if she slept with Aisha when she said this, but now there seems to be no need to worry, right? Why don't we sleep together? Do you dislike me? Then how dare that sister not dislike me? Yayu shook his head in a funny way. It must be said that women are such elusive creatures. They are always angry for various strange reasons. Now it seems that Sana didn't sleep with him simply to prevent what would happen between him and Aisha, but to fight for a breath? As for what to be angry about, you might need to ask Rias. Of course, compared to these somewhat complicated questions, what Yayu wants to know more is whether there is a vacuum under Kang Na's bathrobe. It has to be said that the hint of Snow White on the girl's chest can attract Yayu's attention even more. Seemingly noticing Yayu's eyes, Kang Na showed a somewhat amused expression, and then generously untied her bath towel. If you want to see something, you may be disappointed. Sana said this. Under the towel, the girl was wearing a neat three-point bra. Ahem, cough, how could it be? It's just that Sister Kangna was so charming that I was stunned for a while. Sweet-tongued kid, but the compliments still make me happy. Slender fingers gently brushed against Yayu's face, and the girl immediately lay down on the bed. Okay, it's getting late, good night. Kang Na said this, and Yayu nodded gently, and immediately lay down. The two of them sandwiched Aisha on the left and right, and fell into a dream. There was no talking all night until morning came. Ah! A piercing scream woke up all three sleeping people. Ugh, what happened? Elsa sat up in confusion while rubbing her eyes, and looked around her in confusion, and soon found a red-haired girl standing next to the bed, looking extremely angry. "Who is this, sister?" Elsa tilted her head curiously, but Rias, who was so angry, obviously ignored her. She stared at Sana closely and asked questions unceremoniously. You, why do you sleep with Yayu? Why can't I sleep with Yayu?" In response to Ria's question, Sana replied with an indifferent expression. The girl elegantly lifted the quilt and stood up, unreservedly revealing her infinitely beautiful and exquisite body in front of Rias. Seeing that Sana was still wearing her underwear, Rias breathed a sigh of relief. She knew that even if Sana tried hard once, he still couldn't compare to her. Forget about Kang Na, after all, since she agreed to let Yayu live in Kang Na's home, she had already been mentally prepared to be eaten by Kang Na, although according to her understanding of Kang Na, she didn't. I just think Sana would have the guts to do something like eating secretly. The crux of the matter is, who is this timid girl who suddenly appears? There is also a sacred aura about him. This girl is from the angel side, right? Rias asked Kang Na and nodded slightly, and then Rias's probing eyes fell on Yayu. Yayu looked at Kang Na and the latter nodded in agreement and left the room, because she knew that Yayu would explain to Aisha about the dependents and demon servants next. The fact that Yayujin is a dependent of both her and Rias should be kept secret for as long as possible. Let's wait until the day comes when we can't be satisfied anymore. At least according to the current way of handling it, unless it comes to the hell ranking game, it can still be easily concealed. Kang Na's sudden departure made Rias a little curious. Just when she was about to ask Yayu, the latter spoke first. "President, these are the relatives I found for you." "Hey, dependent. But I've told you before, this girl's identity." Rias frowned slightly and stared at Elsa. She also felt the aura of the divine weapon on the girl. "Although I am very grateful to Yayu for his good intentions, it is not a wise choice to bring this girl back. Although Elsa is a nun, she has nothing left now." Yayu said this, gently touched the head of Aisha, who was feeling a little depressed, and explained to Rias what happened to Aisha. "That's it?" After listening to Yayu's explanation, Rias nodded gently, no longer rejecting Aisha's identity. But as if to confirm something, Rias stared at the girl with very serious eyes and made the final inquiry. "So, are you sure you are really mentally prepared? Join us, join this demon's camp, and become one of us. Now you still have room for consideration and choice, but once you become my dependent, there will really be no turning back." Rias said so seriously, while Elsa nodded slightly and shook her head. "I have made my decision. I believe what I see with my eyes and what I feel in my heart. Whether it is Mr. Yayu, Sister Kangna, or Sister Rias, you are all very important. A gentle person. Are you gentle? I didn't expect that one day I would be praised like this by a nun. Then, I admit that you have the qualifications to be my Rias Gremory's vassal." She shook her head in amusement, and then Rias spoke to Elsa in an extremely serious tone, then opened her palm and took out a scarlet demon chess piece. A chess piece representing the rank of monk.